Theo Epstein, the president of baseball operations for the Chicago Cubs, has stepped down after winning a World Series title in 2016, but being a bit subpar in the last few years. So many Cubs fans were, this should have happened 3 years ago. This should have happened 2 years ago. This should have happened this. It should have happened that. Don't be like that. If you're a Cubs fan, just don't. Theo Epstein got the job done in Chicago, and it was win a World Series. I don't think you guys know truly how much that championship meant to the city of Chicago. The Cubs are Chicago's number one sports team. If you live in Chicago, you know that. If you don't, now you know. And they had just been terrible for the longest time. They've had good teams. They've had good players. But they just could never win it all. And it felt like it was never going to happen. And he came in and built this team from the ground up and got the job done and won the 2016 World Series. I can't thank him enough for that. I just can't. That was the greatest sports game I have watched and ever will watch, was Game 7 of the World Series. That is the greatest event in the history of sports, when the Cubs won the World Series. And you can't even deny that. Winning the World Series with the Chicago Cubs meant more to Chicago than it would have to any other city, in any other team, in any other sport. It meant more to Chicago than it would have to anyone else. It just did. But the years after that, lost in the NLCS to the Dodgers in 2017, lost in the wild card round to the Rockies in 2018. I was at that game, and you kind of felt that the energy in the room was like, yeah, maybe not. Maybe this team doesn't really have what it takes anymore. They go out and they miss the playoffs in 2019. 2020, they come back, they win the division, and then they get swept 2-0 in the wild card round by the Miami Marlins. And this offseason, Theo Epstein decides to step down. Thank you so much for what you've done to this team and what you've done for the city of Chicago. We will never forget you. You will always be a Cub first and foremost. I know you did the same thing with the Red Sox, but you will be a Cub first and foremost. Theo Epstein, we thank you so much for that. When it comes to getting young talent and building them from the ground up, there is no better GM than Theo Epstein. There's nobody in baseball that's better than he is. There just isn't. But when it comes to keeping said talent and keeping the team competitive once they've reached their peak, not so much. And that's where the Cubs are at right now. But he has to be the best to ever do it. He has to be the best ever. He put out a quote: "For the rest of my life, I will cherish having been a part of a great Chicago Cubs organization during this historic period. All the things have made this experience: the fans, the players, the managers, the coaches, the ownership, my front office colleagues, and the uniqueness of the Wrigley Field experience." But I will say this. There are going to be some not so fun days ahead for Cub fans, because I do think that they will be selling this offense, this offseason. They will be selling at the deadline. Because their prospect pool, their farm system is not good. There are not very many bright spots in the farm system. So I think Bryant is gone. Rizzo is gone. Baez might be gone. Maybe there are going to be some big pieces of that core that are going to be leaving. And I know a lot of people like to point to the Aroldis Chapman trade about, the Yankees robbed them. Who got a World Series out of that trade? Yeah. I get it. The Yankees have had more wins and production value, but the Cubs won the World Series out of that trade. So I will take that any day of the week. I fully expect the Cubs to sell, and they are going to be in the White Sox boat from a few years ago, where they're just going to be rebuilding. This is an end of an era. It's the end of an era in Chicago. But Epstein, I hope you pick up another team and bring them to the promised land, just like you did with the Cubs and the Red Sox, breaking the longest drought and the second longest drought in World Series history. Thank you for all you've done for this city and this team and for me.